Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you here on another episode as we move in to celebrating 5 years of EdUp. 5 years of the EdUp Experience. We've been at this for a long time, co-founder Elvin Freitas and I, and one of our proudest accomplishments is the President Series, where we have interviewed over 325 college and university presidents. I actually say 325, but as of last week, it was 325. It's probably 330 this week. And we are booked out every day for 3 months. I do this Monday through Friday every day, and I think I'm interviewing 3 to 4 college presidents a week. So my brain is full of information. But there are certain colleges that I see come up on my schedule, and I go, boom, memories come flooding back. Memories from my childhood, memories of being in a certain place where I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and Buffalo, and the friends I had in Syracuse, Buffalo, Binghamton, Rochester, growing up in upstate New York. And you get to recognize these colleges, and you knew them growing up. You knew that they're doing great work. And then to be able to come on the phone, and then I realized that's going to be dating me, aging me, and I'm not going to do that. Coming on this live, great, up-to-date, state-of-the-art podcast called The EdUp Experience, and interview a president from a university that I recognize, a brand that I recognize from my childhood, is an honor for me. And to see this person and his work and hear about it is the honor of our lives, Elvin and I, as we do this podcast. So we're going to bring him in right now, and he's going to tell us all about what's going on. He's Steve Stoute. He is the president at Canisius University. Steve, welcome to the EdUp Mic. How are you?
I'm good, Joe. Thanks so much for having me, and congratulations to you and Elvin. 5 years. That's pretty incredible. 325 plus presidents. I don't know very many people who have the tolerance for listening to 325 of my colleagues, but well done you.
You know, it's funny you say that because we're like, yeah, dude, can you believe it? We interviewed so many presidents, and then I'll tell somebody, and they go,
this is lunacy.
It is what it is. To each their own, I say. But
that's right.
Canisius, I grew up Canisius, and I know Canisius well. It's one of the schools at Syracuse University, when I grew up in Syracuse, would play early in their basketball season. So I grew up recognizing the brand of Canisius. I couldn't tell you how excited I was to be able to talk to you today to hear about the great work that Canisius is doing, because I grew up knowing about these schools. And so to hear about it now is so awesome. Tell us about Canisius University. Where are you physically? What do you do, and how do you do it? And we'll go from there. Are you going to miss Ellucian Live this year?
I don't think so.
Exactly. So you might as well register right now at elive.ellucian.com. Ellucian Live 2025, April 6th through 9th in Orlando, Florida. Do not miss it.
Do you want to get invites to special events? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes episodes, and original content? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Well, you can go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today. Did you buy your tickets yet? Higher Education's first podcast conference is coming July 12th. Go to higheredpodcon.com, higheredpodcon.com. Get your tickets.
No, absolutely. So Canisius is one of 27 Jesuit universities in the country. We call Buffalo, New York home. We are 154 years old. We're 155 this year. And we've been in the heart of Buffalo for over 100 years. And so it means a lot to us in terms of our commitment to our community, Buffalo, Western New York. It really brings to light why higher education institutions exist. In my mind, right? And that is economic development for communities, socio and economic mobility for families, for students and families, right? And we have done that in a meaningful way for over a century right here in Buffalo and in Western New York. And that's pretty incredible to be a part of. It's a long legacy. And I tell our team all the time, with that comes a particular responsibility for how we do our work, right? How do we invest in the community? How do we invest in our students and their families to provide outcomes that they want and that they seek in higher education? It's not simply looking at the input. What does the student look like when they come to us? Test scores, et cetera, but how do we shape them? How do we form them so they go out into the world and lead lives of meaning when they graduate from Canisius? So that's how we do our work, and we do it from our place as a Catholic Jesuit university who are committed to all of our students, regardless of where they come from, but especially our home turf students here in Buffalo and in Western New York.
I love the home turf.
Amazing.
Let me ask you this, because we only produce the audio, but if somebody were to look you up and look up your background, I was going to ask it one way, but I'm going to shift. Many of the university presidents I interview are very seasoned professionals. They've been in higher education for 30, 40 years, have been all these different provost and this and that and the other. You're you're a good-looking man. You're a young guy, younger on the younger side, I would say, without saying that you're young, because I don't think that's appropriate way. You're also a lawyer, so I'm trying to not get in trouble here with the law. But you're on the younger side of university presidents that we encounter, and you're at a private, prestigious university. Those are very hard positions to get. I know. I went after those positions earlier in my career, and many times you don't age in the right way in that position. People are looking for certain experience and otherwise. How did you, trip and fall into a presidency? Was it something you had your eyes on and said, I'm going to accomplish this goal? Was it something that manifested early in your career, later in your career? How did you get to this point?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I often joke that I bring the average age down in almost every room I walk into.
Thank goodness, because we need some of that.
Yeah, the average age down, but the average golf handicap way up, because this job takes a toll on my ability to be good at the game. But that's neither here nor there. I think I've been really fortunate. I'm a first-generation college student. My parents sacrificed so much to give me the opportunity to immigrate. I'm an immigrant, right? Born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. So to immigrate from Trinidad, to pursue my education at Seton Hall University. And it really was what I learned at Seton Hall and the relationships and network that put me on a path to higher education leadership. I didn't go to college understanding that I could work in higher ed. I could work at a university and make that a career. But my college president at Seton Hall, Monsignor Robert Sharon, he was ever present on campus. And so I developed a relationship with him while I was a student, got to know him. And at Seton Hall at the time, they had a spot on the governing board, the Board of Regents, reserved for a young alumnus. So less than 5 years removed from graduation. And after I graduated and went on to intern at the NCAA national office in Indianapolis, because I was a sport management major, thought I wanted to work in college athletics. Thank goodness I don't today, given what's going on.
What world you would be in, my friend. Oh, wow.
So I lucked out of college athletics at that stage of my career, but he reached out and said, would I be interested in interviewing for that young alumnus role on the board? And that 3 years on the board at Seton Hall completely blew my mind. And open my eyes to what it takes to administer, to lead, to manage, to run a complex, large institution of higher education. So from that point, I'd say 2007-08, I had an inkling that I wanted to pursue higher education as a career. By then, I was in graduate school at the University of North Carolina, again in a sports administration degree. So I had to pivot at some point. I won't say my experiences at Seton Hall in Carolina and in athletics early in my career weren't beneficial. Certainly enjoyable, and Canisius is a Division I institution, and so my understanding of athletics and the athletics landscape, athletics as being complementary to the educational mission, that's a big part of how I think about my work. But I would say around 2007-8 is when I started to think about how do I build the experiences, the competencies to be competitive in the candidate pool for a presidency, understanding all the while that it may never happen, or it may take a lot of things to go in my favor for it to work out. And I've just been really blessed to have great mentors and colleagues along the way who've given me opportunities. At Princeton, Gary Walters gave me an opportunity to work in athletics, to work in fundraising, which I often joke, fundraising at Princeton is not the most difficult job I've ever had in my life.
Nice when the dollars roll in a little bit. I mean,
Yeah. No, Princeton alums want to give to the university. Yeah. It's a matter of directing them where to leverage their philanthropy in support of the institutional mission. Gabriel Esteban, who is president at Seton Hall and then at DePaul, gave me a chance to leave legal practice and be his chief of staff and broaden my scope, broaden my experience, my engagement with the governing board, my engagement with faculty leadership, strategic planning. And so I credit the mentors and supporters in my career for giving me opportunities where I could develop those skills and competencies. And some way, somehow, the board at Canisius thought that I would be the right man for the job at this time, given our institutional challenges and the breadth of experiences that I've had in my career. And it's been a great 3 years so far.
I like your style, dude.
Talk about, we're going to get more to Canisius as a university, but I think the personal part of this is really fascinating. I can hear your Trinidad and Tobago accent there on certain words, but you immigrate into the U.S., you become a college president. I mean, that just mind-blowing, amazing journey if you think about what that would look like for someone now in an urban setting in Buffalo, helping the population, right? Because Canisius is an institution in Buffalo, too. It's part of the fabric of Buffalo and the surrounding area as an urban institution. But you step into a presidency, you get to where you want to go, you build the competencies. What has been the biggest surprise so far to you? Well, give me one surprise that you go, whoa, this was not anything that I thought it would be, and maybe one thing you went, you know what, I think I got this. This is what I expected.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the biggest surprise, because of, to your point, because of who we are, the legacy of Canisius, the reputation of Canisius in Buffalo and in Western New York, is the expectations for me as leader of the institution to be engaged in a meaningful way in our community. Right. I'm really fortunate. My very first year, Governor Hochul, the governor of our state, extended an invitation to co-chair the Western New York Regional Economic Development Council. And so in New York State, there are 10 REDCs in different regions across the state that help drive economic policy, economic development for what is one of the largest states in our union. And so to have an opportunity to work with my co-chair and the Empire State Development Corp staff and the other members of the REDC to advance statewide economic development policy for our region, and to make sure Canisius is a partner in that and has a voice in those conversations. Those things I didn't really understand in terms of that being a core part of the expectations of the president of Canisius University. So that was the biggest surprise. It's all of the nonprofit boards and all of the other engagements that are absolutely critical to doing the work, because that's our commitment to building a community that is successful. Right. I often say when Buffalo is successful, Canisius is successful, and vice versa. And so that was new to me. Like, and I've lived and worked in big cities. I love urban education. There's something unique about urban education, right? And I went to law school at Penn. And so I spent years in Philadelphia. I worked at DePaul, so I spent years in Chicago.
You come from Trinidad. You're picking every state that's cold. You're insane. It's like Pennsylvania, New York, Chicago, Illinois. If it's not cold, you don't go. That's what I'm figuring out.
Yeah. My 1 year in Los Angeles at USC was probably the aberration, and my mom can't seem to understand why. But I tell her all the time, I can't go any further north or else I'll be in Canada. So this is it.
It's so true. That is absolutely true. Well, it is interesting, though. I mean, you think you're also in Canisius, and we talk about differentiation in higher education. You're in an area, New England, that is highly competitive for universities. There are many universities and many choices for students. If they pick a university, which not every student is right now, they're maybe looking at alternative pathways to education, and great for them if they're looking for education. I always worry about the students that are listening to the crap out there that higher ed doesn't have value anymore, that are not choosing higher education or post-secondary ed at all. Maybe they're going to the workforce and later they're going to regret not getting that education. So there's so many competing, competitions and variables. How do you find the environment right now? How do you differentiate and separate at Canisius?
You hit the nail on the head, and I think so many people hear about and talk about the demographic cliff as kind of existential challenge, and it is certainly one of the most pressing challenges for Canisius and institutions like us and our sector. Right there aren't enough college-age students who are graduating from high school, but you hit on one that I think is even more critical, which is a public perception of the value of higher education. Too many of our young people are graduating from high school and they're foregoing education. And look, I understand and respect that college isn't for everyone, but the idea that you graduate from high school and go straight into the workforce, yes, you're making decent money, but one of the things that is guaranteed to happen is change. The pace at which change occurs, particularly now with technology and technological advancements, will assure that the job that you go into after high school is not the job that you have in 5 years or 10 years. And sometimes it's significantly less than that. And what education allows is it gives you these skills to think critically, to adapt, to be flexible, to be a lifelong learner, so that as technology changes, as your job changes, as your field changes, you can adapt and you can continue to progress in your career. So when we think about and talk about differentiating Canisius, we talk about the value of a Canisius education as empowering our students to evolve and learn constantly as their field, insert field here, it doesn't matter what your field is, as your field is guaranteed to evolve. That's the strength and the power of a Canisius education, that lifelong learning, that continuous growth and improvement and development, that ability to lead yourself and to lead others, but also to think critically about the world around you, right? And so that's how we try to differentiate ourselves. But it's, to your point, it's really hard, not because the marketplace is crowded, but because there's so much noise from our elected officials and otherwise that says, college isn't worth it. Go graduate from high school and go get a job.
Tell them like it is.
I feel like one of the demographic groups that most values higher education in this country are those that immigrated to the United States from other countries. And they come in the U.S. and go, oh my God, I cannot believe that I could get this education and that I can go on and get this job and have, first generation students that come from other countries like yourself who just look at education as this North Star. Because those opportunities may not have existed in their background or the U.S. opened up this opportunity. And sometimes I feel like in the United States, for those that are here and been here, and sometimes it's, we take for granted the opportunities that we're afforded. And I do a lot of speaking overseas and in different countries, and there is not that same feeling in other countries that I've been to. They're promoting education. They're saying, how do we get more of our population educated? Because 40% of our students aren't graduating high school. Like in Latin America, there's all the great percentages of students who don't even graduate high school, and they're going, how do we bring more education? And somehow we're talking about less. And Canisius is doing some good work to create more access, to get more. And one of those things is the test optional piece. And I was hoping you would talk a little bit about that and what you're doing for incoming students.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting the way you frame it, right? Because that's exactly the story I tell, because it's my story. Everywhere else in the world, families look and they think, if we can get one child to and through education, it will change the trajectory of that child's life, but also of our family. Right? And I tell our students and our prospective students all the time at events, I am not particularly special. And if I can do it, and I can tell you how much it's changed my life and my family's life, then you can certainly do it. But you're absolutely right. Everywhere else in the world, governments, societies, companies, corporations, families are making significant investments in education because for a generation, for 2 generations, that's been the clear marker of economic social progress.
You think we're nations pay the price? You think we'll pay the price down the road? That there's going to be, I imagine this, years from now, this group of individuals that they did not go to higher education, that end up in the workforce going, I need more education. Cyclical almost, going, we've got all these people who can do all this functional tactical work and no leaders, No,
I think we're already, to be honest, paying the price for it, right? In terms of global competitiveness of the United States. When we look at and data, right? I think there's a lot of there can be debate around this issue, and some of it is clouded in patriotic terms. And I love this country. This is my home. I'm an American citizen, but the data tells us that our global position is not what it once was, and we have been surpassed by countries and economies that have invested in education. Yes, invested in technology. Yes, invested in infrastructure. But education and the investments made in education have been critical to those countries and their development. So I think we're already paying the price for it. And unfortunately, unless we change how we think about education and the funding model, I think we will be playing catch up for a little while. And this from your experience, that means that when we decide to catch up in the future, it will cost us even more. So we're disinvesting now in education, but the bill is going to come due in the future, and it will be significantly more expensive.
Is test-free admissions one of the ways that you try to keep the pipeline, because students do look at testing and go, I don't know if I'm not smart. I don't know what if I can't get in? Is that one way that you try to keep the promise or thought, maybe the belief that I can do it, higher education, alive for students looking at Canisius? At Ellucian Live 2025, we're going to explore the magic of innovation. We want to imagine, believe, and achieve. It's happening April 6th through 9th, 2025 in Orlando, Florida, and we're going to explore technology, modernization, and
artificial intelligence.
Explore the latest technology solutions, discover industry insights, and make valuable connections as a global community. It's time to register for Ellucian Live 2025 at elive.ellucian.com.
Higher Ed PodCon is coming. Go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
Yes, absolutely. Our perspective, our view is eliminate, not erect obstacles. So whatever we can do to eliminate obstacles to education and to this high quality transformative education at Canisius, that's the goal. Our students, our young people have to jump through enough hurdles and hoops and move through too many obstacles already that we don't need to erect more in their way of an opportunity to build a better life for themselves and their families. And so standardized tests, and again, the data, evidence-based is what I often tell my board and my team. We learned through COVID, and we know from the data that standardized tests aren't an accurate predictor of success at most institutions. I cannot speak for my colleagues at the Ivy League institutions or at MIT or anywhere else. I'm sure, because many of them have gone back to standardized tests, I'm sure they look at the data and think, well, yeah, the data tells us that those tests are good predictors of success here. And I appreciate that. And data in that way is sometimes very unique and specific to the facts and circumstances of each institution. And for us, we know standardized tests aren't a predictor, an accurate predictor of success at Canisius. And so eliminate the obstacle, eliminate the roadblock, but also build in the systems, the processes, the supports, so that when our students come here, they have the tools they need to be successful. Because for us, it is not about enrolling the student. If we enroll you at Canisius, if you matriculate here, it's because we have made a decision that you have what it takes to be successful here. And we owe you every resource possible that we can provide within our model to ensure your success. It is about the outcomes, not the input. So yes, eliminate the roadblock of standardized tests on the way in, but how do we build the mechanism, the systems, the processes to support our students to deliver better retention rates, better graduation rates, better career placement rates, lower debt burden. All of those things are things we track. And you and I were talking earlier, leveraging technology is part of that. How do we use technology to give our students the tools they need to be successful?
Epic.
Yeah, I like to say that it's the high tech meets high touch era of higher education. You know, we have to be high tech. And I've said this on a couple of podcast episodes, and so I find myself repeating myself sometimes. And I talk about this in the keynotes that I deliver, that our professional lives in higher education, what we do and the way that students experience higher ed in this institution that we oversee is different than our expectation in our personal lives. We expect, and I talked about my wife, and she was over here recently. We're watching a show last night on TV, and the show comes on, and in the first 3 seconds, she says, skip the intro. Skip it. Hit the skip button. We're skipping introductions because we're so impatient as people. We can't even spend the 45 seconds for an introduction. And these shows that spend millions of dollars to create this content make the introductions like 20 seconds now, and we still skip it. Because, right, your Amazon package comes the day after. You watch on demand on Hulu when you miss a show, so you get streaming. Uber just shows up at your house. You can schedule it for tomorrow. You don't even need to schedule it for today. And it just shows up. You open the door, you get in, get out, and you didn't touch anything. And then sometimes you look at higher ed and you go, you have to navigate the business model. You know, when Uber... The guy at Uber for somehow doesn't show up. You don't call like Uber car maintenance or
support.
Right? Yeah. You don't call HR Uber. You literally that's just happens, right? And there's this magic, and that's the service model in higher ed. You have to map the institution. You have to know who financial aid and the registrar and this. You have to go through this policy structure that sometimes if you take a first-gen student and you put them through that policy structure, it fails the student. If you take an adult student and you put them through the policy structure because it was engineered for an 18-year-old, and the student body is not all 18 coming in from successful high schools. There are students that have barely made it, that Canisius is going to turn their life around for the better. There's all of these student types and policy structures that fail. Sometimes curricular models that fail because we don't update curriculum as fast. You can update you can update and download your favorite show, but you can't update your favorite degree program, right? Like there's all these different nuances. You know, Marriott, I'm getting my soapbox. You get points for staying in a Marriott. What if we gave points to a student who's completed a course successfully, and they could turn those points in for 10% off their master's degree at Canisius when they get done? I mean, so I start thinking about how our personal and professional lives don't match in higher ed. And what do you think about all this garbage? That's the crazy talk that I have going on. Let me step down and let you step up and take it.
You're speaking my language, which I appreciate, because it speaks to what I really think is kind of existential for higher education. Right? It is, so much of this sector, so much of this industry is a centuries-old tradition. Yeah. Right, inherited from the British and protected for age upon age. And there's something magical and mystical about that. But to your point, it is no longer what students need. It's no longer what students demand. It's no longer, and students broadly, right? I'm not talking about the narrow definition of student as in the 18-year-old who graduated from high school and is going on to college. Student means anybody who's interested in learning. To your point, there isn't much that we cannot do from the palm of our hand. You want to order a meal, you want to buy groceries, you pick the thing. You can do it, and you have computing power in your hand that is infinitely faster than it was a decade ago. Yep. Yet still, we have this box, we have this system within which we operate, and we are so intent on holding on to that legacy, in spite of what all of the data tells us about what, right, I'll use a term that is often frowned upon in our industry, what the market demands. And I'm a student, I'm a lifelong learner, and market concepts are economics. Like there's nothing awful about market. We don't talk about markets in higher education, but I remember my freshman year econ course and learning about markets, supply and demand.
Listen up.
Those aren't terms that we should be afraid of in higher education, because there's theory, which we're really good at. There's theory behind it. And so to the extent that we at Canisius can reimagine, re-envision a model that puts the student at the center, right? And that's when I talked on campus, when I talked to our constituents about what the vision looks like for Canisius. It is a student-centered university. The students are at the center of everything we do, from well before they come be a part of this community, long after they leave, right? As alums, as engaged constituents in their communities, we put them at the center. How do we best serve them? How do we deliver a Canisius education in a way that it excites them, it inspires them, it engages them? If we do that well, then the demographics and the public perception, all of those things fall by the wayside, because we will be doing something truly unique. I think there are institutions that have found ways to do this in certain pockets, and many of them are well-resourced, right? You probably read a lot about what's going on in higher education, and I look at institutions. They're not our peer institutions, but I look at institutions that really excite me in terms of how they are innovating. And Arizona State is one of those that has found ways to, again, massive resources, huge structure compared to a place like Canisius, but they've found ways to really innovate in education, and that's what it looks like. And it's not novel in a sense. It's novel to higher ed, but it's using the technology that's out there, using the things that people take for granted every day because we have ubiquitous access to it, and incorporating it into our educational and business model.
Let's go.
I love it. And you know what's funny, and not funny, but Michael Crow, I've interviewed him on the podcast. It all started with this vision at Arizona State to be this, to be that. And that vision is so important, right? As a leader, you have to set that vision. At times, not everyone in the bureaucracy is on board with that vision, especially when you start talking about putting the student at the center. And this is true of Canisius, and it's probably true of it is true of every university in the world. There's always someone that isn't putting the student at the center or can't see beyond self-interest or fear or uncertainty to see that the student being at the center is going to affect my job, maybe in a positive way, but I don't like to change. I've been doing this the way I've been doing it, Steve, and then you come in here and you tell me, you try to change things on me, and what do you know? I mean, there is that attitude that exists within the bureaucracy. How have you found change management, change leadership? Because I know you probably come with 100 innovative ideas, probably want to do them all at once. Then you see how the machine can work sometimes against you if you don't change it right. What has been your experience with change management? How have you found your colleagues at Canisius to be in terms of getting on board with vision and being that student-centered university?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's probably one of those other things that I'd seen enough to know a big part of this leadership opportunity is change management. And it doesn't matter how great the idea is, doesn't matter how sound the rationale or how much data you have to support it. If it's not effectively articulated, communicated, and managed, then you're doomed to fail, unfortunately. And as a concept as simple as putting students at the center and building the systems, the processes, the supports that ensure better outcomes for students may not be well received. And that's human nature. Like you said it, it's self-interest, and we all fall prey to it. Right. And so it is human nature. It's not unique to any person, any group of people, or any institution. But that's the thing I feel really blessed by is I have an incredible board of trustees that believes in me, supports the vision, and is aligned in terms of what this new Canisius University needs to look like. I have an incredible team that I get to be a part of, and we think through critical issues, and we work through strategy, and we understand, like you said, with Michael Crow and Arizona State, we see, it's not a vision that is so far beyond reach. We as a leadership team see very clearly what Canisius 2030 looks like. And that is exciting. And our responsibility, our job now is to get so many more of our constituents, so many more of our colleagues internally, faculty, staff, students, externally, alumni, friends, community, is to make that picture clear for them, right? It's like one of those puzzles where the picture, depending on which angle you look at it, the picture is distorted. But if we do our jobs well, the picture will be crystal clear. And it's hard to argue once you see the picture and once it becomes clear and you understand, there is benefit in it for me. Because again, it all comes back to what's in it for me. And there is benefit in it for me, the faculty member, or me, the staff member, or like you insert title, position, role here. There is benefit. And there's certainly benefit coming back to the mission for our students, their families, our community, our city, our state, our region. Right? That's the way I think about this cascading effect of if we are really able to renew and the institution in the way that we hope. And it's exciting, and there are models out there for institutions that have done it and have done it at scale.
100%.
Let's talk just briefly, a little bit of a left turn, but you're talking about what's in it for me and Canisius being a community partner And when you're in an urban community, really any community, things happen around your community. And there's something that happened, a really negative thing that happened, and you all created a scholarship out of it. I think it's called Legacy 514 Scholarship. Did I get the name right?
You did.
And I want to bring it up because it's colleges and universities that can turn something that is tragic into something positive that has long-lasting effects. So if you would take a moment to talk about what that scholarship is, how it came to be, why, and what the role Canisius plays.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is, again, one of those things you hope and pray never happens in your community, right? And so the mass shooting at the Tops Market in Buffalo on 5/14 on May 14th, 2022, and less than a mile from our campus. Again, we are, Canisius is in the heart of our city, right? And so for someone with racist ideologies to come from hundreds of miles outside of our community with the sole purpose of perpetrating this act of hate and violence. And we lost the lives of 10 beautiful Black people. That, what people hope to accomplish is to tear communities apart, to set people back. I know our community came together and really committed to change, to systemic change. And for us as an institution, and this happened after I had accepted the job to come be president at Canisius, but before I started. And I remember,
it's crazy.
Yeah, I remember my phone just going off and people in my network wondering, like, are you still going to take the job? Are you still going? I was like, now more than ever, as the first person of color to lead this institution, like, my community needs me. And so if anything, it doubled my conviction to come here, to be a presence, and it shaped how I view leading the institution. And we've been blessed to have great community partners. And so the Legacy 514 Foundation came out of that, community-led, community-driven. And when anything happens in this community, Canisius alums are involved, right? You can't go 5 minutes without running into someone in Buffalo or in Western New York who went to Canisius. And they came to us and said, this is what we're doing. We see education as a pathway to systemic change for our young people in Buffalo, and we want Canisius to be a part of it. And that was the easiest question anyone's ever asked me. It's like, yes, what can we do? How can we do it? And so they do a number of events to raise money for the foundation and for their scholarship. And we match dollar for dollar whatever scholarship they grant to a student. So if you get a Legacy 514 scholarship and it's $5,000 and it's stackable on top of any other aid that you get, then we're in for $5,000 to match that. And so it is one of those partnerships that I know benefits students. I know it. Talk about eliminating barriers. One of the real barriers is cost of an education. And we are very generous with financial aid. Over $21 million a year we give to our students in terms of financial aid, but there is a cost. And so this is one of those partnerships because our students stay in Buffalo, right? Whether they come from Buffalo or not, one of the great advantages of Canisius to Buffalo is we recruit students from all over the country, all over the world. And more often than not, they stay here. They build families here. They build lives here. They build businesses here. And that's one of the many ways that we can drive economic impact and economic development for Buffalo and for Western New York. So that's one of those community partnerships that I'm extremely proud of because it's a unique commitment to our community that has gone through so much and has found a way to turn tragedy into triumph.
I love that. I think that's such a great story. I'm so happy that you told it here on the YOUR EdUp experience. And it turns, like you said, triumph? And how do these people who get this scholarship go on and change the community for the better through education? That's why we do what we do, right? Like, that's why I do this podcast. That's why you're a college president, because it's those moments that we go home and we go, wow, that's pretty incredible. And so I want to leave you with the last two questions to close us out, Steve. What else, first of all, what else do you want to say about Canisius? Maybe anything else that you want to bring up, tell us about that we didn't discuss? Open mic for you, and then I'll ask you one more and we'll go home. Ellucian Live is taking place April 6th through 9th, 2025 in Orlando, Florida.
You just made the list!
Get ready for an unforgettable experience at Ellucian Live 2025. Join visionary leaders from institutions worldwide as we dive into groundbreaking ideas, cutting-edge solutions, and transformative best practices that will ignite your passion for innovation. This is your chance to connect, collaborate, and propel your institution into the future. Do not miss out.
Let's go!
Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe today. We're excited to announce the first of its kind higher education podcast conference brought to you by Edu Alliance, the EdUp Experience, and Podium. This is happening Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus. This is an in-person event, one day only, the first of its kind. This is for people working in and around higher education who are interested in starting a podcast, who may have a podcast, want to learn more about podcasting. So if you want to be there, please go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn how you can get your early bird registration, see who the keynote will be, and how you can submit proposals to be a part of this amazing inaugural conference. So that, again, go to higheredpodcon.com to learn more.
Well, that's an awful dangerous thing to do is leave a president with an open mic, because I can go. I've got stories.
I can't hold you to time. If you keep going, I'm great. It's just you that has to take the schedule hit.
Yeah, no, I think the one thing probably I would want to emphasize is when we think about the future of Canisius, but of education. And education is a pathway to social and economic mobility. What we know is diversity of experience and diversity of choice is important, right? And so every person is different, and not everyone is suited to go to the big school with 20, 30, 40,000 students and be in a class with 500 kids and, see the faculty member as, a small dot at the front of the room. We believe in high impact learning experience, right? What we talk to our students and prospective students about is the ability to take ownership of your student experience. And you determine what do you want it to be? How do you build it from an academic and co-curricular perspective? But you have to engage. I was always told it's a contact sport. And so it's a team sport, but it's a contact sport. You have to want it. And this Canisius experience is what you make of it. But we frame it for our students as you can come here and you can go anywhere. And it is all hands on deck, right? When you come here, every student gets a success team, like 4 dedicated professionals to help them, academic advising, financial counseling, career advising, mental health, like mentoring, like you name it. We think about the student and it's wraparound services, 360 degrees. What could a student want to help them be successful? And that's what we're building here because, again, at the end of the day, it's about putting the student in the center. It's about understanding that unique student's perspective and how can we help them be successful? Because success is not what we determine it to be. It is what each student determines it to be. So success for you looks like, I need this specific skill set. I need an associate's degree. I need a credential. I need a certificate because I want to go start a business, or I already have a business and I want to scale it, or I want to sell it, or I want to grow it, or I want to change careers. Whatever success is, we are building the university that allows you to engage in this really transformative educational experience the way that suits you so that you can build that success. And I think that's exciting.
I do too. And so with all that said, I have to know what you see for the future of higher education.
What I see is twofold. I think one, partnerships. I say all the time on campus here, and many times when I'm engaged with our constituents, nothing of significance was ever accomplished alone. Throughout all of human history, nothing of significance was accomplished alone. And so if we can reframe the mindset of competing in every way and learn to collaborate and partner and cooperate, we will advance our sector. We will advance our goals, our shared mission. We will grow our communities much more effectively, much more efficiently than if everything is a competition. Because again, going back to economic terms, scarcity and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I can go on and on and on. But collaboration over competition is one. And I think real innovation, right? I told this to my trustees when we were building our strategic plan 2 years ago. In every higher ed strategic plan on every campus, you will read the word innovation. I have not read a single university strategic plan that doesn't say innovation.
It's one of the pillars. In it. It's usually one of the pillars of the, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And ask yourself, how much has our sector really changed over centuries?
Yeah.
Where is that innovation? I think this is the moment. I really do, because of all of the externalities that are pressing on higher education, demographics, public perception, the culture wars, you name it. Because of all of those external pressures, I think there's a greater willingness, number one. There's certainly a clarion call for real innovation in higher ed. And I think that's what we'll see over the next few years. And I feel really lucky to be in a leadership role at a time when our industry is finally going to change in ways that it hasn't for a long time.
Well, we'll be watching closely to see what you do, Steve, and help you in any way that we can tell the story of innovators in higher education making a difference, and we know that you will. It's been an honor to host you today. I hope you had fun. Did you have fun as you got to talk about Canisius?
I had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be number 330 odd among the list of presidents that you've had to listen to over the last 5 years.
Every conversation is different. And you can imagine how much information comes in here. So I get it out and I have to write. I have to take all these concepts and write about them. But it's truly an honor. And we wish you well. And I will come out and podcast in person someday at Canisius in the summer. In the summertime.
You grew up in Western New York. The weather's not that bad.
I got thin skin now for the snow, but everybody follow Canisius, connect with Steve on LinkedIn. Ladies and gentlemen, he is Steve Stoute. He is the president at Canisius University. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just ed up.